Well, that was a decidedly inauspicious ending, but here's what we're looking at with this sound. We have a cool thing happening in here in that when you have a bandpass filter, you have the possibility of creating, sometimes accidentally, some formants. When you have two different peaks in a bandpass filter, it's possible to create sort of formant sounds. And we're hearing kind of formant sounds. Formants are boosts in frequencies that sound like the human voice. And that's what's happening. And I was manipulating this by controlling the filter, because at the tempo that this song was going, when I put the decay time to 0, we were only getting a sort of rhythmic effect in regard to the envelope generated for the sound. Then it came down to how long I was holding it each time I was triggering the envelope. And it allowed me to do kind of this rhythmic, cool thing. But really, we had a almost 50% square wave and a pulse wave. We had a 16 and 8, so oscillator 1 was an octave lower than oscillator 2. No portamento. They were of equal volume. There was no frequency modulation going on. We had the high pass filter at about 3.5 and a peak of about 8, resonance up to 8. We had the low pass filter at about 5, and again, peak about 8. Both of them were being modulated by the modulation generator, which, but only slightly. So it was set to a triangle wave and the frequency was very slow. So it wasn't doing anything really overt. Both of them were being modulated by envelope generator 2, except for I had envelope generator 1's output going into the low pass filter. So really, only the high pass filter was being modulated by envelope generator 2, which was what was creating that rhythmic inconsistency that I was generating by playing with the decay time. And that is really all there was to that sound. Oh, I should also point out that oscillator 2 was pitched down a fourth. So it's not playing the same note as oscillator 1. So yeah. Which is kind of a power chord sort of a deal. And that's all that was happening in this really cool sound. And really, again, it's one of those situations where the combination of the rhythm and the drum sounds and the fact that I was like messing with the triggering of this sound in combination with the cool bandpassy formant effect. And also, I should say, this is a very MS-20 sound. Okay, this sound is not complicated, despite probably looking like it's the most complicated, because it has all of these patch chords, but I'll explain everything I did, of course. It's just two sawtooth waves, and they're both at 16 feet, and there is the portamento. What we have basically done here is kind of a tricky thing. Basically, we have two sawtooth outputs. We have them both at 16 feet. We have a little bit of portamento. And then the clever thing, it's not really clever, the thing I did was that I took the output from the phone jack and I put it into the external signal processor, which is becoming a theme with me. I bandpass shaped it so it's a new set of frequencies and put it into the external signal in to sort of bolster the sound. I chose some sort of low end frequencies with the bandpass. I made the band sort of accentuate low, mid to low frequencies. Put that back into the sound to give it a full sound. So it's fuller than it would have been because we boosted these frequencies in this range. It's like equalization to a degree. And then I took the, to get this weird modulation effect that you saw me doing when I would use the wheel, I took the white noise output, put it into the clock of the sample and hold. I took the pulse, the square output from the modulation generator, and put it into the input of the sample and hold. I set the waveform all the way to the right like you should. And I chose a frequency that was in time with the song. Well, kind of in time, almost in time. It's really hard to do with analog to really have it line up perfectly, and you're all like, well, that's why we have MIDI and whatever. Anyway, it's more fun to try and fake it like I did. So I had the modulation generator going into the input of the sample and hold. I had the white noise, oh my god, I had the white noise going into the clock. Oh, I had this backwards. No wonder it was so weird. Okay, this is cool. I totally made a mistake, and it's really cool. Instead of putting the white noise into the input, I put the white noise into the clock. And instead of putting the output from the modulation generator into the clock, I put it into the input. So we basically switched an audio signal for a control voltage signal, and the output I took and put into our second VCA, controlled by the wheel as usual, and then I used it to control the frequency of the oscillators. And it was a weird outcome. I admitted, I was like, well, that's not what I expected. Well, it's because it's kind of backwards. But it made a cool noise, and with some artful playing and some good luck, that sound would totally line up with the tempo of your song. And you have this kind of cool thing where the pitch kind of goes down a little bit, and you have this pew, 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 pew sound. It's really cool. And so that is really the body of what's going on. I did have the low-pass filter affected by envelope generator 2. Oh no, I also had it affected by envelope generator 1. I had the output from envelope generator 1 going into the low-pass filter's cutoff point input. So it wasn't envelope generator 2 that was controlling low-pass filter, it was envelope generator 1, which is a good idea because it's different than envelope generator 2, which is controlling the VCA. And it looks like that's about all we're looking at with this crazy patch cord. But yeah, it was very close to using up all of the cables that come with the MS-20, which apparently there are 10. I'm just guessing. I mean, I remember that from my memory. I don't know if it's true. But I think there's 10, and I must have used 8. There's just a point. Some patch I'm going to have to see if I can use all the cables, because this is kind of crazy. But anyway, so that's basically what happened with this sound. There isn't much else to report. I did have the high-pass filter also accentuating sort of the lower range, the fat range frequencies by giving it some peak and then setting it into the 2.5, 2.75 range. And that's the sound.